Join us today and get ready for an eye-opening episode like no other. Join us as we dive into a deep conversation with Chris, a former radio personality turned sober coach. Hear his raw and honest story of overcoming addiction and finding a whole new purpose in his life. Discover his unique approach to changing your relationship with alcohol and gaining insights that will truly help you and challenge your perceptions of alcohol. Don't miss out on this incredibly powerful episode that is going to leave you inspired and motivated as you embrace positive change in life. Tune in now and be prepared to be captivated by Chris's transformational journey. Hi, I'm Jenna Dix, and I'm always rambling. Just ask my husband. I have a great family and a pretty cool life, but I'm a recovered alcoholic. That's hard to say, but my goal is to inspire and educate to help others hopefully find life beyond an addiction. I'm all things: sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Getting healthy, momming, and politics. Get offended easily? You better stop listening. There is no point in wasting that Botox by stressing yourself out listening to a podcast. Welcome to Ramblings of an Addict with Jenna Dix. Today's episode brought to you by products and services I'm thoroughly addicted to. Are you looking for a reliable and experienced realtor in Minnesota or Wisconsin? Look no further. Keep Mike Dix with Pemberton Homes at top of mind. He is your trusted guide to finding your dream home. With a deep knowledge of the local markets and commitment to exceptional service, Mike will go above and beyond to make your real estate journey as smooth and successful as possible. Whether you're buying or selling, let Mike be your partner in achieving your real estate goals. Contact Mike Dix with Pemberton Homes today and experience the difference firsthand. Catch his details in the show notes. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode. Very exciting episode coming your way, as you heard in the little introduction there. Today we are going to have a very special interview. We have sober coach Chris, or Chris Schatek, who is from the Twin Cities here in Minnesota. He lives here with his beautiful wife, Ashley, and they have an amazing little girl, super cute, Mila. And Chris has spent over 20 years working in the radio industry as an on-air personality who he loved his job. But he felt that there was a purpose beyond that. And he followed that lead. And it took him on quite the journey, quite the shift in these last few months, last year or so. And I don't want to spoil any surprises because this is Chris's story to share. And he's going to share it a heck of a lot better than I will. So we're going to jump right into our interview with Chris. So Chris, I want to welcome you and thank you so much for being here.
Yeah. Hey, Jenna. Thank you very much for having me on. I'm excited to chat with you today.
Yeah, absolutely. I am super honored that you took the invite, and not even going to lie, my own complex over here, I'm like, ooh, I got a radio personality. His voice is going to be killer on here. So I got to step my own game up.
Well, I appreciate that. It's kind of funny because I often forget that my voice is like loud and projects. And sometimes my wife we'll be in like a grocery store and I'm just having a regular conversation. And she's like, why are you yelling? I'm like, I'm not yelling. I'm sorry. I'm used to projecting. So sometimes I forget, but I appreciate that. Yeah.
Absolutely. And you know what? I think that's a male thing too. I mean, I know you know my husband, and there's times I'm like, okay, I think you need to get your hearing checked or something. You're like, the whole world hears what you're saying right now.
Yeah. You're onto something there. I think you're right about that.
All right. So Chris, we are going to jump right in. And today I'm going to flip my interview questions kind of upside down from the normal. Every time I do an interview with somebody, the last question I always ask is, have you ever been addicted to something? And if so, what did you learn from that experience? But today we're going to do that question first because it's going to lead beautifully into your story.
Yeah, well, definitely. If there's something to be addicted to, basically I've been addicted to it because, you know, the biggest thing that I was addicted to was alcohol. That was the thing that I needed to overcome the most and the thing that changed my life the most. But prior to that, man, I was addicted to gambling. I was addicted to smoking cigarettes, some other things. You know, basically I had convinced myself along the way that I just had this addictive personality. And that was the story I was telling myself. Yeah. And realizing the things that I realize now is that I didn't indeed have an addictive personality. I don't really believe that that's a thing. But what I learned from being addicted to all these things was with each of them, it was always me chasing something. It was like I was this hamster on a wheel. And whether it was alcohol or gambling or smoking or whatever, it was always like, okay, I gotta get this feeling. I gotta escape. I gotta win big. I gotta feel good. I gotta calm down. You know, whatever I was trying to do, and then I would get it for a little bit, and then it was gone. And it was like, okay, now what? Now we got to go back to it, and it just got exhausting. That's what it taught me the most. Like, I was never getting what I wanted. It was constantly this chasing, and I got tired of it. I got exhausted because there was no happy ending there.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I mean, I know you know a little bit about my story. I know the audience, they've definitely heard it. And same as you. And so truth be told, I actually do say, like, I do have an addictive personality. And I truthfully feel that way because I can get addicted to, like, really good things. Like reading a book, like, everybody leave me alone while I finish this book or you know, things of that sort. But yeah, it truthfully, I think you nailed it. It's on a hamster wheel trying to obtain that next solid feel, that dopamine hit. Yeah.
And a lot of the times it's not even the experience itself. It's the thinking about it, the leading up to it.
Yes.
Oh my God, it's almost the end of the day and I'm going to have my drink. And then, you know, or if you're on a slot machine or a blackjack table, it's like, oh my God, what could happen? And then let's say you do get a win or something. That doesn't last. It's like, okay, now what? What's next? And like I said before, it really is exhausting. And I think to a certain extent, all of us are addicted to something, right? Whether it's even just our phones. I can definitely say I'm addicted to that. Sometimes I find myself mindlessly scrolling.
Yes.
and what I've realized is just really having the awareness that, okay, what am I doing right now? What am I getting out of this? What is it that I'm searching for? And just paying attention, as opposed to just mindlessly doing activities because that's the way that you've done it and you fall into your familiar patterns. Just having that awareness of like, okay, what am I getting out of what I'm doing right now has really kind of shifted things for me.
Absolutely. Having that self-awareness is such an important skill because once you understand the why, you can start to process it in a different way.
Yeah.
I love that. Okay. So you've been essentially addicted to the gamut, right? So tell me a little bit then about you were on air, you're doing your radio thing, and I know the backstory a little bit, but let's share it with the audience. Tell me a little bit about that transition to, I think there's another path for me here where I can do some good for the world.
Yeah, so I worked as an on-air personality, a DJ or whatever, for about 22 years. And, I mean, it's all I really knew my whole life since I was a kid. That's what I wanted to do, and I started when I was in high school. And I did enjoy it for a long time, but then I started to not enjoy it. And, I was finding myself just kind of going through the motions. I was not feeling fulfilled. I wasn't doing anything to make a difference in the world, and I was just very unsatisfied every day. And that, looking back now, is a big reason I know I was drinking, because I was stuck in this place of like the comfort zone, right? Because it was like all I had known. Yep. I had become wrapped up in this identity that, I'm a guy who's on the radio, and if I don't do this, who am I? Are people going to like me? And if I don't do this, what the hell else am I going to do? Because I'm trained for nothing. At least that's what I thought.
Right.
I was really living in fear and the comfort zone, if I look back at it. And so that's what kept me drinking, because I would go home at night and think, I'm not really satisfied with my life. I mean, by all accounts, I have a wife, I have a daughter. There's a lot of great things in my life, but to the outside world, it looked like I had everything together. But then inside, I was drinking a lot. I would drink myself to pass out pretty much every night. I would go to bar gigs hosted by, alcohol companies, and they give you free drinks. Let's go to concerts. You get VIP, hang with the artist, all the free drinks you can handle. I didn't even realize that I was wrapped up in this culture. And oh, by the way, the format that I worked in was country music. And if you listen to any sort of country music, you'll know it's really ingrained about drinking. And I didn't realize how I was kind of being brainwashed the whole time I was in that genre, that format. I like to actually play a game now. If you turn on any country station, count how long it is until you hear alcohol being mentioned. And I guarantee it'll probably be less than a minute for most of the time you tune in, because it really is about drinking and how that seems to be the problem and the solution and all this kind of stuff. But anyway, I was in this career that wasn't satisfying me. And so I'd go home and I'd drink. And I got laid off in 2020, when I was working from home, the pandemic hit, all this kind of stuff, and the radio business is dying away. So then I'm like, okay, I need to pivot here. But then Apple gave me a job on the same day. And I'm like, okay, well, it's Apple, so I don't want to turn them down.
Right.
Even though it wasn't really what I wanted to do, but I still was living in fear. And so I took the job with Apple, worked with them for 9 months. I got fired from them. Had nothing to do with drinking or anything else. But I say now that getting fired from Apple was the best thing that ever happened to me, because that was really the catalyst to make me go, all right, I need to do something different here. I need a shift. I need a pivot in my life. And I just looked at myself and I had an honest conversation and said, what is it that is keeping me from living the life that I want to live? And the man that I know I am deep down. And the one common denominator was alcohol. That was always the thing that was keeping me from being that person. And I knew that if I wanted to become that guy that I knew I used to be and that I was meant for, that alcohol needed to go. Because it's not like I had a rock bottom moment, right? It's not like I got a DUI. It's not like my wife was going to leave me if I didn't get it together. Right. It was me that was making myself miserable, and I knew it. I couldn't lie to myself anymore that it was all outside things. It was like, no, it's the alcohol. I know if I get alcohol out of my life, I can change. And so I made that decision right then and there. At the same time, this is when I decided, I want to do something where I'm helping people, where I'm making a difference in the world and seeing a tangible difference among people. And so I decided, I want to do something around life coaching, like helping people live their best lives. And I thought, how can I talk about helping people live their best lives and then go and drink myself to oblivion every night? Like that cannot be a hypocrite. That's a big value I will not do. So I was like, this has to go. And at that time, I didn't know I was going to help people around the premise of quitting drinking. Okay. But as I got my certification in life coaching and realized, like, well, what do I want to help people with? I thought, well, this is the biggest thing in my life that I've overcome, the biggest thing that I'm passionate about, because I was starting to see a lot of changes in my life from quitting drinking. And I just decided, like, I know there's other people out there that are like me, that are high functioning people. Looks like they got all their shit together to the outside world. Inside, they're suffering in silence, and they know that alcohol is making them miserable. I want to show them there is a different path, and that you can move on from alcohol in a different way. There's a lot of options when it comes to it, and so that's kind of what got me here.
Awesome.
So, yeah.
And you nailed it. I mean, literally, you explained me to a T. I'm complete high-functioning person. The outside world thought my life looked absolutely fabulous, and yet here I was, 2-3 times a week, like you, blacking out. and waking up the next day and being like, I am a pile of poo. Like, how am I doing this, yet doing it all over again?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
You know, when you talk about the high functioning drinkers who, and I think that what I often see with my clients that come to me is they say, well, I'm high functioning because I can drink all night long, get 3-4 hours of sleep, wake up, go kill it at work. Nobody would know that I'm drinking the way that I am.
Yeah.
Even my spouse, like my wife, she didn't even really know how much I was drinking, and how bad it got. So we can hide it from the world, and we can still go do a stellar job. And so what I think ends up happening is people think, well, I'm not that bad then, because it's not like I'm losing my job. It's not like I'm, waking up and needing to drink all day, every day. And so we compare ourselves to other people and we say, well, maybe I don't have as big of a problem. But in reality, there are a lot of people that are doing this. And because alcohol is so widely accepted and socialized, glamorized and put, people don't want to talk about it. So then we end up, at least in my case, I was suffering in silence thinking, well, geez, am I the only one dealing with this?
Mm-hmm.
And that's...
Yeah, exactly. So I'm curious, when the day that because you were already in training to be a life coach when you made that decision. So what was the route you personally took to be like, I'm kicking the bottle, it's done?
I just made the decision. I remember having this conversation with myself on my couch one day, just sitting there and going, we got to get honest about this. And I had that conversation with myself and said, I need to cut the bullshit. And this is one of the things I have my clients do. I have them write a bullshit list of all the things that I believe I need alcohol for, or why I have it in my life. And it was like, for me, I believed I needed it to sleep. I thought, well, I can't sleep if I don't pass out. I have insomnia. I'm going to be socially awkward without it. How am I going to, go and hang out with people without all these different reasons that I had to just get honest with myself about. And once I did that, I started doing a few other things, like looking at my life and going, why am I drinking? What is it that I'm numbing, escaping, running from? What are the things that I'm avoiding with alcohol that I need to address? That when I think about, I get that pit in my stomach and I just don't want to deal with it. I got to start dealing with these things. They're going to be there. I can't drink them away forever.
Right.
And I started dealing with those things. And once I started kind of, hitting these things head on and going through the uncomfortableness of all this, I was like, oh, that wasn't so bad. And, but it all started with the decision. I think that's the hardest part, right? When we just make the decision to go, I have to do something different. I have to take action here.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be committed. That for me this time around was the biggest change, because I drank heavily for about 15 years. And for the last 5 of those years is when I probably started looking at, okay, this is making me not the way I want to be. I would do 30-day challenges. I would quit here and there. It never stuck. I would put rules on myself. And I just found myself keep coming back to it. And I realized it was because I wasn't committed. I had one foot in sobriety, but one toe dipped in. Well, I still kind of like this. I'm not ready to give it up. And so I had to make that mindset shift that, look, I'm all in on this thing. I'm committed. I'm not going to try and see how long I can go this time. I'm just going to be a non-drinker. And so I started doing things like a non-drinker would do. I took it all off the plate. So that way, if somebody said, hey, here's a drink, I would say, I wouldn't have to think about it. Like, oh my God, what am I going to do? They put a drink in my hand. What am I going to say? I would just say, what does a non-drinker do? I would say, okay, well, I'm a non-drinker. Here you go. So that it takes that thinking part of it off the table, and that questioning part. So, those are some of the things that I did. Just really, I think the biggest part that I want people to take away from that, though, is making the decision, having the honest conversation with yourself, and really dealing with the shit that you need to deal with were the 3 biggest things that helped me, move forward.
Yes, absolutely. And I agree. I mean, I think it's you're using it for a reason, and typically you're muting something. So having to make the decision and say, I'm going to do this, hard or not, and then attacking it. I love that. So I'm curious, you did it yourself, which is awesome. Huge kudos, right? But now being in that space where, hey, I would love to help coach people. Tell me a little bit about the approach that you take as you're working with individuals to develop a better relationship with alcohol.
Yeah. So, the reason I started doing this was because there's kind of this thought out there, at least in my mind, that if you want to quit drinking, your options are either AA, rehab, or just kind of white knuckling it and using willpower.
Yep.
And all of those three things sucked to me. I didn't want to go to AA, and then this is not a knock against AA because I know it's helped a lot of people.
Agree. Yep.
But there are certain things with it that I disagree with that I'm like, that's not the path I want to take.
Mm-hmm.
Rehab is incredibly expensive. And, I didn't feel like I wanted to go to rehab.
Yeah.
And I tried the white knuckling using willpower in the past. So I wanted to offer people an alternative way to work on this. And a big thing that helped me, that I help my clients with, is understanding the subconscious mind versus the conscious mind. Okay. And the easiest way, because once I understood that, man, it made a whole world of difference, because 95% of us is our subconscious mind that's been programmed since we were born. And there's all these programs running in the background. And so I realized that, the reason I wanted to drink was because I had all these subconscious programs running saying, when I'm stressed, that equals I take a drink. When I want to reward myself, that equals take a drink. Celebrating with friends equals drink. All these things were automatic programs running in the background. And the way that I like to describe it best is like, if you had 100 horses and 5 of them were trying to go in one direction, that's the conscious brain saying, I got to quit. I got to stop. I know this is bad. Mm-hmm. If 5 horses trying to go in that direction and 95 horses trying to go in the other direction of, well, alcohol is a big part of my life. Everybody else seems to be doing it. Why can't I be normal and drink? Well, the horses are going to go in that 95, direction. And so a big part for me was understanding, how do we get those 95 horses to unlearn all the programming, to break up those automatic programs that are pulling me back to my familiar patterns with alcohol. Yeah. And if we could do that, so that the 95 horses are going, well, wait a minute. No, I don't want to go in that direction anymore. I want to get in line with the consciousness part of my brain and move forward. That is what really helped me. So I help people understand that, because I think that's a huge part of this. And then also just really understanding really what alcohol is and how it has no benefits, how we've been duped into thinking we need it, into thinking, life is going to be really weird or it's going to suck without it.
Yeah.
Once you kind of see what it is and how it works and all these kind of things behind it, for me at least, it was like I couldn't unsee it. I had finally took my head out of the sand, took the blinders off, and dug into the research about it. And that really helps me, because the desire part of it was what I needed to do. I needed to not desire alcohol the same way I don't desire heroin or, cocaine or any other hard drugs that I've never done and I never would do.
Right.
So if I could look at alcohol the same way I look at those things,
right,
and I have a desire for it, I don't feel like I'm missing out or depriving myself by not drinking it, but I genuinely feel grateful for no longer being a slave to it.
Yes.
That is what I needed to do. And that's one of the things that I love helping people with, because, what I see happen a lot of the times, is people will quit drinking. They don't really want to, but they kind of feel like they have to. And it'll be, they'll be sober for 7 years or something like that. Mm-hmm. And they'll whiff of a drink and they'll smell and they go, oh God, I wish I could have that. Oh man. Oh, I just wish I could be a quote unquote normal drinker. And they still are romanticizing it. They still are feeling like, I wish I could have this, but I'm not allowing myself to. And to me, that's miserable. Yeah. I didn't want to that way. And I had thought for the longest time that if I quit drinking, that's what my life was going to look like. And honestly, that thought alone kept me from really pulling the trigger and going alcohol free, because I'm like, I don't want to be that way. I want to be able to hang out with my friends that drink and be okay with it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, you know, that for me is helping people live their lives that way, so that they don't have to live in a bubble. They don't like alcohol. They don't desire it. They can be around people who are drinking. They can live their life without it and realize how amazing their life can be as a non-drinker, as opposed to, I gotta go to meetings forever. I have to say I'm powerless. I have to call myself an alcoholic. I have to, you know, talk about doom and gloom and shame and judgment like that. Again, that for me doesn't work. So I wanted to offer a different approach.
Right. Well, and I mean, you know my background, health coaching, and exactly, there's a time and a place that you can bring in the negative side of it to show that, hey, it is there. But majority of it, you want to be like that positive focus, helping pull them along, or not pull them, but like helping show them, hey, there's better. You don't need that.
Yeah.
That positive reinforcement. I loved that whole explanation, and the part about, you know, it's not doing your body any good. I mean, just like how you don't crave, you know, heroin. Exactly. The things alcohol can do to your body, from the basics of inflammation, empty calories, it's a depressant. I mean, there's so many negative things that people, they romanticize it. And it's like, hey, don't forget about these other pieces.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible, because you'll have people that are health nuts, right? Go to the gym 5 times a week, eat only organic, healthy foods. They are really, you know, conscious of how they treat their body. They'll go and drink because it's so accepted, and we've got trained. It's been handed down from generation to generation. Maybe your parents probably did it. Their friends did it. You see everybody around you doing it. And it just becomes one of these things that we don't understand or realize, in my case at least, just how damaging it is. And there are zero benefits. You know, there used to be that old line about, well, you know, 1 drink a day for women and 2 for men. And it's all BS, because now they're finally starting to be honest about it and say, no amount of alcohol is good or healthy. And, you know, it causes at least 7 different types of cancers. You know, there's just no benefits to it. And, you know, I think we fool ourselves a lot of the times with that. And the hardest thing about alcohol is it's so well, I believe it's harder a lot of the times to quit that, is because if let's say you did have a heroin issue and you were able to overcome that, well, you don't see all your friends on social media posting about, it's Friday, it's happy hour, or walk by a liquor store or a bar, or be bombarded with alcohol messaging everywhere you go. Like with heroin messaging, for example, it's out of sight, out of mind. People aren't doing it. But with alcohol, man, it's
everywhere.
It's everywhere. And so it can be really tough to feel like, man, am I the only one that's am I the weird one that's not drinking?
Why am I not normal?
Yeah. So I definitely, there's a stigma that comes with it. And it's just like, but here's the good news, Jenna, is that I think a lot of people are turning the corner, especially young people are going, you know what? I don't really understand the point of alcohol. It's not doing me any good. I'm tired of like waking up with hangovers, feeling like crap, because the non-alcoholic space is like booming right now. So I think people are going, I'm not digging this alcohol thing so much anymore.
I totally agree. So we're about the same age. And do you remember, like, in our early 20s, the bars would be so packed you couldn't move. Getting a drink would take like a half an hour, it felt like. And my husband and I, last summer, one day, we went to a bar that was typically one that was always incredibly popular. And we went there, and it was just a normal Saturday evening. Like, back in our day, it would have been packed. And back in our day just made us sound really old, by the way. But we went there, and we're sitting there, and it was totally dead. And the next week we just drove by kind of for shits and giggles, completely dead again. And I'm like, what the hell? Like kids that like the younger ages must just not go out like we all used to.
Yeah.
Which is awesome to see.
Yeah, definitely. And I think alcohol is the new tobacco, right? I mean, 30 years ago, a lot of people were smoking. There was unrestricted marketing like alcohol has. I mean, shit, back in the day, again, to use your term, this is our time, but, doctors used to recommend Camels were the healthiest cigarette. And once the truth finally started coming out and people realized, oh, okay, there really are no benefits to smoking and it's pretty gross and all this kind of stuff, a lot of people stopped smoking. And I think alcohol is, probably not quite there yet, obviously, but I think it's going to get there eventually.
Mm-hmm. I agree. It's going to take a little bit. And at the same time, I think it's going to take, unfortunately, some of the older generations, to make their next move in life or in their space. But yeah, the younger generations are definitely seeing that, because I even look at, my in-laws who are a lot younger than me. They're like 10, 15 years younger. And yeah, they just don't drink like we used to in our early 20s. So
yeah,
it's crazy. It's crazy good, but it's still just mind-blowing to see, which is awesome.
But at the same time, there are still many, many people who are struggling with this. Oh, for
sure.
It is so addictive. We talked about heroin, and that's the number one most addictive substance in the world.
Correct.
And number two was alcohol. Yep. And I didn't understand that alcohol was that addictive, where it's the number two most addictive substance in the world.
Yeah.
And it's crazy when you start to look at these things, because alcohol kills over 3 million people every year.
Yep.
Heroin kills about 90,000 people every year. One of them's legal, one of them's not. You know what I mean? It's like, holy shit, when you really start to see these things, it's pretty eye-opening.
Oh, totally. So I'm curious, just this tangent for a moment, but I'm thinking you might know the actual numbers or a better guess than I would have. During COVID, what happened with numbers with addiction with alcohol? Do you have any idea?
I don't know, like, numbers wise, but I know in the people that we work with, I hear it all the time, how COVID really ramped up their drinking. It did for me. I mean, I know very, very much so, because, you could drink earlier and earlier, you could sleep a bit later, nobody had to see you, and it's a really big issue on one hand, but on the other hand, I think, I try to always look at things from the positive side, like how can we look at this as a good thing, as a gift?
Yeah.
It shined a light on people's addictions where it might not have as fast before, where it really slapped them awake and went, wait a minute, what am I doing here? I gotta do something about this. I can no longer take it or leave it like I used to. And so, but I know that whole situation really ramped up people's addictions to alcohol a lot.
Absolutely. I mean, that's even in my space, and I don't do pure sobriety coaching at all. Like, I heard that. So I'm curious. You've already, talked about, you coach, you have the option for sobriety coaching. Tell me a little bit more about, if somebody was sitting there thinking, maybe this is something that I could do, or maybe this would be something for me. Tell me a little bit about your coaching format. Do you do it via Zoom? Is it phone call? Do you do individual, or is it group? Is it insurance covered? Just tell me a little bit more, so if anyone is out there curious, we can answer some of those kind of FAQs.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have, we offer what we call the Freedom from Alcohol coaching program, and we work with people. We do one-on-one coaching. We also do group calls. We do, I have a whole video portal with trainings, with resources, tools, exercises. For example, like, what do I do if I have a craving? What, step-by-step process on what you can do. I'm also a certified hypnotist, and so I have hypnosis recordings to help really retrain your brain and your subconscious around, changing the way you view alcohol. So people get that part of our program. We it's me and my team. I have two other coaches that work with me, Matt and Lauren. And, we do breath work. We do what's called a belief balancing in Psych K, where we take, maybe some beliefs that you've been holding on to since you were a kid that are no longer serving you, and help you break through those. So we have a lot of that stuff that is included in this. When we have the group calls, it's really, I want people to understand this is not just about, we don't just talk about alcohol when you think of like an AA meeting, right? We talk about your life and how to handle stress and anxiety, how to maximize your sleep. We have experts come on in the world of fitness, nutrition, intimacy, meditation, to really get your life into a place where you're in control. You have that confidence that you're in the driver's seat. Alcohol takes the back seat. It's very insignificant. So you don't want to escape. You don't want to run from anything. You want to face your challenges head on. And so we work on all these things together. It's really customized for each person because everybody's a little bit different. So,
awesome.
There are some things out there where there's like a 30-day challenge and all this kind of stuff, which might work for some people. But what we really do is go with the individual and what they need. So we do that. Everything is virtual. So it's over Zoom. So we work with people all over the world, and they're all high-functioning drinkers that are very similar. People can relate to it. I don't take insurance. It is out of pocket. And, it's one of those things where it really is an investment into yourself.
Agree, yep.
But it's people will tell me that the investment pays for itself time over, because not only are you saving money from not drinking, but you're getting your life back. And what happens is we've had people that quit drinking and then they're now like making 3 times as much in their job, whether they do sales or whatever, because their productivity has gone up. We've had people that have always, I have a woman who has always wanted to have her own farm. So she moved out of California and bought a farm in Missouri. She took her 2 horses and she was able to do that. She also quit smoking. She quit a lot of other habits too after working with us. And we just had, it's so amazing to watch what people can do on the other side of alcohol. And so if you're listening to this, I want you to understand that what we do is not just, hey, quit drinking because it's bad. You're going to end up in debt or in prison if you don't do this. So much more than that.
Yeah.
And it's about getting your life back and being in the driver's seat of your own life and taking charge of it.
Yeah. Exactly. It is you in the driver's seat, because when it comes to your life, no one else should be in that driver's seat. And you should be empowered enough to be in that seat confidently.
Yeah. And I think what happens, in my case especially, I know what was happening, is we go through life on autopilot.
Yes.
And we don't really take the time to question things on why we're doing the things we're doing, whether it be our job, whether it be our relationship, our friends. We just kind of go through the motions and end up letting life happen to us rather than taking charge and deciding what we want our lives to look like. And once I removed alcohol from my life, it opened up all these opportunities for me to see clearly where I wanted to go next, what I was going to do. And I will tell you, Jenna, waking up now every day is so much better because I don't dread the day. I wake up and I am thankful for the day and I look forward to it and I love my life. And when you can go from that darkness of addiction and that shame, the regret, all that shit that comes with it, you can get out of that and see that there's hope and there's light on the other side of this thing. Your life can do such a 180. And in the 2 years that I've been alcohol free, I've been able to do so much more with my life than in the 15 years previous that I was a drinker.
Seriously. Okay. So I have a tangent that I want to go down in a second, but first I want to give you, person to person, addict to addict, coach to coach, Chris, like huge kudos, because obviously this is behind the scenes. No one knew this, but you and I had a conversation. I think it was like a year ago. The first conversation you and I had. And we just were talking coach to coach, like, how are things going? What are you doing? And I remember just kind of spewing ideas, and you were just getting started. And the fact that you're at a point where you have a team of 3 of you, you've upped your certifications, you have amazing success stories, like the woman that got her own farm and she's quit. She now has the confidence to quit smoking and quitting other bad habits and, following her heart and her dreams. And I give you so much props. So I don't want to glaze over that at all. Like, that's huge. Something to be so incredibly proud of yourself for.
Well, I really appreciate you saying that. But honestly, it's not me doing these things. It is really the people, because coaching is not me telling you, hey, go do this, go do that, and then you're going to be cured and you'll be just fine.
No.
People be willing to put in the work. And, I always tell them on our first call, my job is to help powerful people remember just how powerful they are, because each one of us is powerful. And again, we get on this autopilot thing and we forget about it. Yeah. So my job is to help people, and just like your job is as a coach too, to help people remember and realize their strength, their power, their capabilities, their wonderful qualities, and how to tap into those and stay away from the shit that's draining their energy and that's not bringing them fulfillment and joy. And sometimes all it takes is somebody believing in you, somebody that's been in your shoes that can guide along you on this thing. And that's, as coaches, what we do. And it's the most rewarding thing in the world to literally, I get a little bit choked up thinking about it, just because I've watched people freaking their souls come back to them. I think of another woman that just messaged me yesterday, a picture of her. She bought a paddleboard. She's always wanted a paddleboard. She had drank for 30 years, every day of her life, had gone to counselors, AA, you name it. Nothing worked for her. And not only did she send me that picture, she just, a couple weekends ago, she sent me a picture of her running her first 5K. She remodeled the bathroom, all these things that she's been able to do since getting rid of alcohol and realizing how freaking amazing she is. And we have stories like that all the time. So
yes,
I just really love that. I love seeing people take charge of their lives, man.
That's your fuel to keep going, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
As it should be.
Fired up.
I used to, when I was in corporate coaching, those were the stories I would save in a file, and it was Coaching Rocks file. And on the days, because, there's going to be days too where you're kind of in the dumps. You're like, I'd go into that folder and totally just refocus myself and recharge, because those are the stories that are going to keep you going no matter what you're facing. So I love that. So you do an amazing job, it sounds like, of tailoring it to each person. You dove into that a little bit. So tell me, because people are going to be facing, obviously, obstacles, bumps in the road, and we don't want to sugarcoat that, because it's going to happen. How do you address the fear or, the resistance that these people are going to come across, so that when they make that decision, that they can continue to focus hard and change that relationship with alcohol? Like, what are some of those strategies that you utilize with them?
Well, so I think you hit the nail on the head. There's always going to be challenges in any one of our lives. There's always going to be some roadblocks or speed bumps that, you're going to have a bad day every once in a while. And that's, hey, a little bit of stress, a little bit of anxiety is normal. Like, life isn't supposed to be all rainbows and butterflies. And it's actually those moments where we get to learn the most about ourselves. And so if we can look at it from an opportunity in those moments to say, all right, what is life trying to teach me here? What is the universe or God trying to, have me go through so I can be stronger on the other side? It's really all about shifting that mindset from, oh my God, this is a struggle, I need something to numb out with, to, well, wait a minute, how is this an opportunity? How is this a challenge that I can overcome? And so that's one of the ways that we help people. A big part of what I have people do is just catch themselves in these negative thought patterns that we all get into. So when they're thinking negatively about themselves or saying and speaking negatively about themselves, I have them be really aware of that and catch it and immediately shift it to a positive. And just changing little tweaks here and there. For instance, when you wake up in the morning, one of the first thing that I say is thank you. I just say thank you. Today's going to be a great day. Setting the tone, for that kind of positive mentality. All these little things that we kind of walk people through. And then also understanding that at the end of the day, no matter how challenging life gets, whether you're grieving a breakup or a job loss, or maybe your boss is just being an asshole, I don't know, whatever it is, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Alcohol is never going to solve any of those issues. It's only going to make it worse. It's going to numb it for a little while, but then the morning it's going to be there still. So it's never a solution, right? And if we can understand that, rather than going, oh my God, my life is so tough and all this, and trying to escape, like, walk into it. Embrace the suck is what I always tell people, like, especially in the first month of quitting drinking. There are going to be challenges. You're going to have emotions come up that you didn't know were there, and you're going to be irritable. Your sleep is going to suck. Like, there's all these things that are going to happen. Just embrace it. Like, anybody who's gotten sober had to go through that. There's no way around it. There's no magic bullet. There's no magic pill. So you can either go through it and go, oh my God, this is so tough. And then listen to that little voice in your head that says, a drink would solve all this right now. You've been really good. It's been 10 days. Just one drink won't hurt. If we don't understand what's happening, we'll easily succumb to that voice and fall back into our old familiar patterns. But if we go into this and go, okay, I'm going to embrace the suck. I know that this is going to be challenging. I know that voice is going to pop up in my head. I'm not going to try to ignore it. I'm not going to listen to it and just or succumb to it. I'm going to witness it and say, I see what you're trying to do there, but I'm not going to let you win this time. And just those are some of the methods that I help people kind of work through in the early stages here.
Awesome. And you nailed it. I love that, embrace the suck. Because that's anything that's difficult that you're going to go through and you want to see an achievement on the other end. I mean, right away, what kind of popped into my head, and even though I'm not a runner, the vision of, training for a marathon, the beginning is going to absolutely blow ass, at least in my mind. Trying to get those miles in. But as you go, it gets easier and easier, and you might have a bad run. You might have a bad day, just like you might have a bad day where you have a moment and, I kind of have a craving. But that doesn't mean you can't continue to keep pushing through and embracing that suck. Yeah.
And those cravings might last 20 minutes, 30 minutes, maybe an hour, but they'll pass. I mean, they're not going to be all day every day. You can get through it. And it's just, I think the thought of quitting and the thought of, oh my God, there's going to be this giant mountain I got to climb is a lot of the times way worse than actually going through it, because we build up in our head this horrific story that we're telling ourselves, like, oh my God, all this is going to change and I'm going to lose all my friends and I don't know what to tell people and blah, 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 blah.
Right.
And then just do it. You make the decision, you take action, especially if you're working with a coach or you're doing, you understand the process of what's going to be going on. It really doesn't have to be that bad of a thing. And you can learn a lot about yourself and change things in a pretty quick time, so
sure.
That's why I love coaching.
Yep, exactly. And I mean, how I describe it to clients always, and this probably isn't the best analogy because a lot of clients I work with are on weight loss journeys, but I always use the example of the ice cream sundae, that every time you make a goal happen, it's like you're scooping another scoop of ice cream onto your sundae. And it's just getting larger and larger, and you're building this beautiful sundae, and it's your confidence sundae, and be damn proud of that, And
hell yeah. Celebrate those wins.
Hell yeah. And that's exactly what life should be about. And we're so trained, number one, not to celebrate ourselves, but number two, then, especially, coming from the space you're in, we're trained that when we do celebrate ourselves, that means go grab a cocktail.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I love what you're doing, Chris. You're doing tremendous things. I want to tap into your personal story here for a second, because you went through the gamut. You broke that addiction yourself, and you have created a beautiful career off of it, helping many people with their story as well. Tell me though a little bit about, how has this, beyond changing your career and giving you more purpose in that regard, which is awesome. In a nutshell, how has not drinking changed your life?
Well, you said in a nutshell. I'm going to try to make it in a nutshell because there's been so
Loaded
many
question.
so many freaking wonderful things. For one, my wife also quit drinking. I mean, our whole relationship was built around us drinking together. And it was a big fear of mine that if I quit, what's going to happen to our relationship? So she quit about 2 months after I did. Okay. And now we're both alcohol free. And holy shit, our relationship has gotten a lot better, a lot stronger than it ever was. We're better parents. We're better partners. We are, we're just in a much better place. Of course there's my skin is improved. Mm-hmm. I've lost weight. I feel better. The energy is there. I'm sleeping better than I have since I was a freaking high schooler. I have more confidence, more money. Obviously, I'm more productive. I've been able to do, like I said earlier, so many more things in 2 years without alcohol than probably the 15 years previous combined. Wow. One of the big things that we're going through right now is, and I haven't even told a lot of people this, but we're moving. We are moving to South Carolina.
What?
Because
congrats.
Because we're tired of the winters. We just don't want to do the winters anymore. We love it here. We love where we live, but we just said, you know what? We don't have to stay here. And part of being alcohol free and getting back in the driver's seat of our lives is we get to make those decisions. And, it wasn't an easy one to make, but we decided, look, let's live our lives the way that we want. And, take a leap of faith and just do it. So, I mean, there's been so many wonderful things, but that in a nutshell are the main things that I can think of off the top of my head.
Oh, well, like I said, that was a loaded question. I mean, I'm right there with you. I feel that one in my soul because I've had, my journey is obviously different, but trying to put it in a nutshell, that's not possible. But that, number one, I knew the story that Ashley had quit shortly after. I love hearing that your guys' relationship is stronger than it's been, because I had that same fear, because my marriage was, at the time we were dating, it's like, we go and drink together. We go to the bar. We have a cocktail. We relax. So it's hard to let go of that. That was definitely a limiting belief when it's you and your partner. But you two are an amazing, you're evidence that, no, actually, you may feel that your relationship is solid and built on this, but no, hell no, that's not what this is about. We got into this relationship for a reason. We're a team. You two have an amazing little daughter, and now you get to be in a great example for her. Freaking fabulous right there, that story. And congrats on the move. That's a big move, cross country.
No, it's, and again, we wouldn't be making this decision if I was still the old me, because it was, just going through the motions, letting life happen to us. And, again, it's taking charge of your life. You get to make life whatever you want. And I think people, a lot of the times we get stuck in, well, I have to settle for this. And I didn't want to settle anymore. And so that's, if there's one thing somebody's listening to this can take away from, you don't need to settle for a life that's less than, no matter how old you are, no matter where you're from or whatever your story is, you can't go back and change the past, but you can start right now and decide, I am going to live my life the way that I want to, and I don't want to put poison into my body anymore because it's not serving me. I'm going to start, changing my habits to ones that serve me. And man, you can have the life that you want. It's going to take work. It's going to take effort, dedication, consistency, but you can absolutely do it.
1,000%. Absolutely. And, I think the best way to summarize that, and this is something I try to embrace in my own life, is fuck mediocrity.
Yes.
Right? I mean, it's pretty bold, but you know what? We get one life. We get one space on this earth. Why would we waste it sitting and drowning in the bottle?
Yeah. just dumbing ourselves down. And it nailed it. I mean, mediocrity is that is where I found myself getting into, and I knew I was meant for more than mediocre. And it was just like, no, man, I don't want to die and still have music left in me. Like, at what point do we make that decision? Because that scared the shit out of me to live a life of mediocrity and less than I knew I was capable of. So,
absolutely.
When you challenge yourself, you'd be amazed at how you can surprise yourself and feel really good about the decisions you make when you make that decision, when you take that action and give up whatever is not serving you, whether it's alcohol or any other addiction. It's really life-changing. So
absolutely. Well, you already kind of spilled the beans a little bit on a big hurrah that you guys are doing. I'm curious though, anything on the horizon or any exciting things that you're working on or plans for Sober Coach Chris moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, that's the biggest one right there. Moving, setting up, in a whole different state, being where there's a lot of sun, next to the ocean, something that I've felt called to. I love palm trees. I got a tattoo of one on my arm because it reminds me of freedom. And so I'm like, I've always kind of been drawn to that. So I'm just kind of following my heart and seeing what happens. And it's beyond that. No, I don't really have any specific plans other than to keep doing this and helping people who want help and making a difference, helping people understand, like, vulnerability is okay. And if you feel like you are like ashamed of having a drinking problem, please don't be. It's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to share with people your story, and it can be really, really helpful. So I just want to kind of spread that message more and more, whether that's writing a book, whether it's starting my own podcast. I don't know. We'll see what happens.
One step at a time, and the next step you guys are taking as you head to your palm trees and a little bit more freedom and sunshine, that's a huge freaking step.
Yeah.
So huge congrats to you. Exactly. I mean, the testament is each and every one of your clients, they're pouring in their effort. They're pouring in their blood, sweat, and tears, essentially. The effort is on them. But without a solid coach who built a solid business to back them, I'm sure, God's plans work in mysterious ways. They could have found someone else, but they found you. And that's because you followed your heart and you followed your passion. So I give you huge props, Chris. Huge props.
Well, thank you, Jenna. I really appreciate that.
Yeah. All right. So I would love for you to share with the audience, if they're sitting here and they're like, oh my goodness, this guy is spilling so much truth. I'm loving what he's saying. How could they get in contact with you?
So the easiest way is probably just to go to my website, which is sobercoachchris.com.
Awesome.
You can find me on social media at Sober Coach Chris in most places. I do a lot of videos on TikTok, a few on Instagram. We have a Facebook group, which is a wonderful community of other people that you can relate to. It's a private group, so your friends and family don't, see that you're in there. They don't see what you post. Okay. It's just everybody that's in there is in the same boat, whether they've quit drinking or they're trying to quit drinking or whatever, but it's called Freedom from Alcohol. And you can just search for that on Facebook, or you can just go to my Facebook page. Again, it's at Sober Coach Chris, and there's a link to it there as well.
Awesome. And I will connect with you as we wrap this up here and get all that information, and I'll plug it into the show notes. So you can just, when you're in the podcast, scroll down a little bit. All the show notes are right there, and you can click on any of the links and very easily get connected with Chris as well. But Chris, I could not be more thankful for you. Number one, for sharing your story today, for sharing what you're doing in today's world, and super exciting to hear about your next steps. But yeah, any final last messages, motivational thoughts, or anything that you want to share as we wrap here?
Well, one of the things that always comes to mind is a quote that I heard, and it instantly hit me like a ton of bricks, and it lives in my head every day. And that is, easy choices equal hard life. hard choices equal easy life. And when I started embodying that and going, life isn't supposed to be easy. I'm not owed anything. I'm going to earn it every day. I'm going to make the hard choices because I want to have an easier life. Like thinking about the long term as opposed to just that short term dopamine hit has really, really helped me. And so that's what I guess I would leave you with. I love that quote. So there you go.
Perfect. I love it. Exactly. Life's not going to be handed to you on a silver platter. You got to fight for it a little bit, but it's worth it.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, Chris, I want to thank you so much for being here. Again, you can check the show notes for Chris's information. If you felt, this message was speaking to you, you felt it in your heart, don't hesitate. Reach out, get that help and take that step to better your life. Whew, that episode definitely did not disappoint. I want to thank you so much for joining me and Chris on this amazing episode. Honestly, hoping that this story has left you feeling incredibly inspired and motivated for whatever change you feel you need to be focused on in your own life, possibly even looking at your own relationship with alcohol. Because remember, the biggest thing, change is possible. And as I've explained in my own story many times, the route to get there can be incredibly different and individualized based on you as a person. Maybe someone like Chris is just what you need. Again, his details are going to be in the show notes. Definitely check those out if it would be something that would be helpful and useful for you. Don't forget to subscribe and share this podcast with others who may benefit from these insights that we talked about today. Until next time, remember, embrace the power of positive change. And as you're continuing to strive to live a life filled with purpose and joy, put on that armor of God each and every day, my friends. Love to all of you, and I will catch you in the next ramblings. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Ramblings of an Addict with Jenna Dix. Remember, if you are battling an addiction, reach out for help and support. There are many resources available to assist in your journey towards recovery. Surround yourself with a supportive community and never give up on the path towards a healthier and happier life. I appreciate you taking the time to listen and joining me on this journey. As you heard, I'm always rambling. But seriously, thank you for your support and make sure to subscribe and follow my channel. I can't wait to share more with you on the next episode. Until then, keep on rambling. If you have found this podcast helpful and want to dive deeper into personal growth and self-improvement, be sure to head over to my website, jennadix.com. You'll find a wealth of resources there. There is a little less drugs, sex, and rock and roll these days, but whether you're interested in getting healthy, information on momming or parenting, or politics, jennadix.com has something for everyone. So, what are you waiting for? Head to jennadix.com today and start your journey towards personal growth and self-awareness. See you there.